Alexander Isak wants to leave Newcastle United. This is seismic. This is massive breaking news. We're talking about one of the best footballers on the planet demanding or asking that he leaves 3 years away from the end of his contract, away from Newcastle United. Only a few clubs in world football could afford Isak, and if he was to join them, he'd completely revolutionise what they're offering on the football pitch. It would be one of the biggest transfers, not only this summer, but if Isak was to join a big football club right now, it'd be one of the biggest transfers in the history of football. Not only because of how good he is as an exceptional world-class forward, no one can doubt that these days. That's how good he is. But the fact that he's still got 3 years left at a club, which is one of the richest clubs in world football, who have got no reason to let him go. We're going to break down what this means for Isak, what this means for Newcastle United, and of course, talk about all the clubs that he's linked with and some big ones in the Premier League, of course. Leave your comments down below. Where do you think Isak should go? Should he stay? And what should happen to Newcastle United in terms of, would they want to replace him this summer? Would they even want to think about that? It'd be crazy. Could Newcastle United start this season without Isak? Absolute scenes if that was to happen. Make sure you subscribe to the channel as well. Would really appreciate it. Ultimately, Isak has come out and with big reports today from major sporting outlets suggesting he wants to explore a move. So maybe at the start of this video, if I've implied that he's demanding to move away from Newcastle United, that's maybe a little bit unfair. But it looks massive today that he's really set on leaving Newcastle United. There are a couple of reasons for this, I would argue. The first one would be, if you're being linked to a club like Liverpool, for example, then ultimately that is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, because Liverpool are top 3 biggest clubs in world football, and they are so big as an institution that they would draw anyone in. You want to play for Liverpool, you want to play alongside the likes of Virgil van Dijk, Mohamed Salah. So if you're Isak and you want that move, that makes a lot of sense to me. The other one would be money. Links to, I think it's Al Hilal in the Saudi Arabian Pro League. If you want that kind of move to set up your family for life, I don't think it's right. I don't think the Liverpool move necessarily is right for Isak. He's got a contract for a long-term, big, expensive contract at Newcastle United. But if I was going to praise one of them, I understand the Liverpool in a big way. I wouldn't understand him moving to Saudi Arabia. We have to talk about just where he is right now, and that is obviously in a bit of a limbo situation where apparently a thigh injury has ruled him out of going to South Korea and Singapore on the Newcastle United pre-season tour. I saw a great tweet from Henry Winter actually talking about this, suggesting that players often will just go on that trip anyway, even if they have got an injury, just to be amongst fans, just to be amongst the coaching staff, amongst players. Obviously, sort of staying in hotels and having a little bit of a holiday, but a kind of a footballing holiday where you can have camaraderie and you can sort of have a bit of fun together. And ultimately, the fact that Isak isn't taking that on, despite the fact that I'm sure he does have a legitimate thigh injury, would be a bit of a concern for Newcastle United and Newcastle United fans and Eddie Howe, because it looks like he's making the most out of it. With all due respect, it's different to having a broken leg where you have to have a specific recovery. A thigh injury seems very light. It's the kind of thing that you sort of take a week out of in the Premier League, a couple of weeks out of. Surely you would travel, even if you had that, and you take that trip. The fact that he's not done that suggests that he wants to be in Europe and he wants to maintain some sort of presence here if a club was to come in and bid for him. So what, he can get a medical, he can sort of be looking around for suitors while Newcastle United play in the east of Asia. It's a very tricky situation for Newcastle United. It's hard for them to demand he come because he's got an injury, but it just does look a little bit suspicious. It does look like a little bit like player power. Now, I think if Newcastle United, let's just talk about their perspective, if they just held on to him and were stubborn, didn't even offer him an improved contract, which is being touted at £300,000 a week, I don't think Isak's the kind of player that would kick up a fuss. Sometimes you see players really down in tools, refusing to train. It can get nasty. Player power can get really nasty. We've seen it in the Premier League countless times. Isak, for me, would be playing for Newcastle United next season. There's no doubt in my mind. My only question would be, if he puts massive pressure on now and then a big bid comes in, how would Newcastle United be able to turn down 140, 150 million pounds? I'm not saying it's an easy transfer logistically. I'm not even saying that kind of bid, as I'm recording this video, is in the offing. But if a bid did come, and it is plausible that it could come in the future, in the next few weeks, particularly from a couple of clubs I'll talk about in a minute, then it would actually have this kind of double-edged sword to it, where the player power is there. Isak wants to move. He's done a lot for Newcastle United, scored one of the most important goals ever. You could actually argue Isak is as important as the likes of Alan Shearer to Newcastle United, based on that goal against Liverpool in the League Cup final. I mean, I'm not even joking. You could say that with Dan Burn as well. But then Newcastle United are in a position where, can they turn down £150 million to keep a guy for 3 years? I mean, that would be a seismic amount of money, and almost a record amount of money to be turned down. I don't think I've ever heard of anyone turning down that kind of money, particularly in the Premier League. This is a very, very interesting situation. He's scored 62 goals in 109 appearances for Newcastle United. You could argue that in only 100 plus games, and obviously a few of them where he's been injured as well, he still has a little bit more time at Newcastle United. This isn't Harry Kane right at the end of his Spurs career looking for that Bayern Munich move, looking to win more silverware before maybe his prime years are up. You could argue, if you're Newcastle United, if you're Eddie Howe, that we brought you in from Sociedad, put you on a massive wage, prepared to go right now for the kind of wage in a brand new contract offer that would break the structure of the wages at Newcastle United. And you can just sit there and say, we're a big club, we're a big institution, we're going places, we're in the Champions League next season, rightfully so. You helped us get there, but a lot of players have helped you get there as well, including Eddie Howe, who's, I think, helped help the culture at Newcastle United and helped develop this guy into one of the world-class strikers in the world. Does he not deserve a bit of loyalty? Can you wait till next summer? I know there's a World Cup coming up, but right now, does it feel premature? That's what I think a lot of Newcastle United fans would think, and certainly the ownership at Newcastle United. This is a big asset. We're not keeping him past his sell-by date. We're not holding on to him in a stubborn kind of way. Show us a bit of loyalty in return and play for us crucially in the Champions League. This isn't a side that missed out on the Champions League. They're back in European competition. And I think if they add a bit of quality in and around him, they've already brought in Elanga, they've kept Bruno, they've kept Tonali, Gordon, then Isak could be playing big football matches and actually could be competing next season. I've been saying on this channel that Newcastle United are a few players away from actually having a run at winning the Premier League next season. Not saying it's likely, and there's a couple of clubs in their way, but you have to look at it from Newcastle's perspective that it's still a very exciting proposition. Why would you want to move so early? Then you look at the clubs, and I've started this video talking about Liverpool. I'm not going to go masses into Liverpool because it's a speculative transfer suggestion, but there has been small rumours, particularly from Build, I remember a couple of weeks ago, saying that they could go in for Ekitike and Liverpool and still be PSR compliant. That is outrageous. And why wouldn't you? In this opportunistic, modern transfer world in football where clubs are semi-hoarding footballers, they're gambling and gambling and gambling over and over again. I'm not saying Liverpool are doing that, but why not going for Ekitike and Isak if you can do it? Why not? Get it before maybe Barcelona free up cash next summer and sign Isak, or Real Madrid. You don't know. But Liverpool, if they did it now, they'd guarantee their forward line past the likes of Mohamed Salah, who's obviously got a couple of years left. It would be a big, big move for Liverpool. I'm not saying it's likely, but it's feasible. And the rumours have been there. And they've got the money with PSR as well. That's all I'm saying. I get it. If Isak wants to move to Liverpool, I get it 100%. I'd be very disappointed if he ended up in the Saudi Arabian League after all of this, because the money's being offered at Newcastle United. Yes, the tax incentives are different in this country, but you're playing serious football for a serious manager in a serious competition for a serious fan base in a beautiful stadium under the lights on a Champions League Tuesday night, Wednesday night, and you're getting 300 grand a week. I'd rather that than 500 grand a week in the Saudi Arabian Pro League, with all due respect to that competition, which is growing and developing. But you're in your mid-20s, you're in your prime years. Isak still has a room to grow even at Newcastle United to becoming the great striker in world football, particularly as Harry Kane's on the decline, competing with the likes of Erling Haaland. Leave your comments down below. Where will Isak end up this summer? Should he be looking to move Newcastle United away from Newcastle United, I should say? Make sure you subscribe to the channel. I'll see you very, very soon.